Tom Trento's from Jersey, and he believes in family values. Was it Bonanno? Gambino? Yeah, this is Tommy Trento, Tommy the Trigger, Tommy T, T-Rex Tommy.
Securing a room like this, getting the tables organized, getting this panel of unique subject matter experts does not just happen. I think it's very important if we recognize don't go anywhere, Dr. Robert Katz, his wife, their children, and their friend David. If all of you would stand up, please. Give them a hand. This has been an amazing event. There is literature in the back. We're taking Janine to Israel. Should be interesting. There it is right there, our website. You can get all the information. About 30 people so far. We're going to limit to about 80 people, 2 buses. And December 1st, that decision will be made whether or not the embassy moves. And May of next year, when we're there, it's Jerusalem Day, 51 years. So you want to be on this trip of a lifetime. Yeah, everything's passed out. There's more information in the back. But what I'd like to do for the next few moments is start with my conclusion. And my conclusion is I see an inevitability that an Islamic atomic bomb will be detonated in a major U.S. city somewhere possibly within the next 7 years of President Trump's time in office. My topic is Christian persecution in the Middle East and beyond. My opening. 8 o'clock tonight, Game 3 of a pretty wild World Series. And if you're A.J. Hinch, the manager for the Astros, or Dave Roberts, the manager for the Dodgers, you're going to be pretty excited. But imagine, if you will, you see the manager of the Astros at the beginning of the game go to the Dodgers dugout, and the manager of the Dodgers comes over to the Astros dugout, and they start congratulating each other's team. And they stay there for the game, helping manage the other team. At 8 o'clock tonight, Game 3, if you saw that, minimally, you'd think it's bizarre. You go, wait a minute. Don't these guys have any loyalty to their own team? Don't they have any love for their own team? Don't they have enmity toward the other team? Don't they have hatred toward the other team? It was this sports analogy that I recently heard an Islamic scholar and imam use to justify the sacred doctrine within the system of Islam that provides the basis for unmitigated, unimaginable persecution of Christians in the Middle East and beyond. This analogy used by this imam, he said, if you're a member of a team, you have love for that team. If you look at the opposing team with love, you are not Islamic. If you look at the Muslim side of the ledger with love and loyalty, that's Islamic. he started to articulate a critically important doctrine. And my thesis for a few moments together, the big idea that I want to leave you with that ties together virtually all the speakers. You listen to all these speakers and we see two competing Weltanschauungs, two worldviews. How could this be? Well, this imam, using that analogy, simply said, in Islam, we have al-wala wal-bara. That's the doctrine, fundamental, that provides the fuel for unmitigated, unimaginable persecution of those in the Middle East, Christians. Wala bara, wala, loyalty. If Muhammad was loyal to something, so ought you be. If he disliked something, so ought you be. Bara, hatred, love and hatred. Binary, black and white. This is not my opinion as an analyst doing this stuff. You can go read factually a very sophisticated doctrine compiled from the Quran and the supporting materials, the Hadith, the Sunnah, all the good stuff, undisputed doctrine, wala bara. Now, if this be true, or better yet, since this is true, how the hell can anyone in their right mind, if a system, and you'll see me use the word system for Islam, religious organizations, philosophers, my background is theology, philosophy, law enforcement degree, a whole bunch of different things. Philosophers will identify movements as systems. I identify Islam as a system. It's got a theocratic end, it's got a philosophical end, it's got an eschatological end, it's got a polity, a civil polity, a government. It's a comprehensive system. If the system of Islam, which some people call a religion, it has a religious element to it, a veneer, if that system truly has a sacred doctrine that forms the basis to necessarily hating non-Muslims, if that be true, how the hell can you say that's a religion of peace? That's a great religion in the world? Great in what sense? And more importantly for our work, how does the West analyze this information that is indisputable in the world in which we're trying to understand and construct public policy to help the poor souls in Syria or anywhere, wherever they may be? And the sword of Islam, the scimitar, is not just singled on Christians at this point, though I happen to be an evangelical Christian and my heart bleeds when I see what's going on. But the Jews have been wiped out. Hardly any Jews in the Middle East, other than that one God-blessed land. At the turn of the century, 20% of the Middle East was Christian. And we know about the Armenian genocide. We can go through history and show you all kinds of genocide against Christians. Down in the Middle East today to about 4 or 5% of the Middle East are Christians. As it's going with that magical digital death media, with the capability of cyberspace, the internet, where information goes instantaneously. Go kill that person now. It can be used for great stuff, the internet, but it also can be used for devilish and demonic destruction. If indeed this is a true belief system, how are we in the West supposed to figure out how to deal with this so that we can protect those being targeted by Islam? I can go on for a while talking about the various situations, political situations where Christians are being persecuted, but I'd prefer to leave you with the foundational concept of why, not what is happening, but why this is happening. And I want us to get our heads around the totality, particularly from the Islamic worldview, the totality of a doctrine that says we must hate those who are not Islamic and we must love those who are Islamic. Now, I critique systems. If an individual, a Muslim, chooses to reject his own doctrine, from a Western point of view, he's a what? He's a good person. But he's not, as someone mentioned earlier, a good Muslim. Don't let the anecdotal or emotional elements of analyzing factual sacred doctrine interfere with the construction of public policy designed to help people. This is where we lose our way. So where are we going with all of this, if this be true? I'm going to list a couple of items for you. And I'm sure there's some in the audience, maybe, but there's certainly Muslim apologists out there. And I don't hate Islam. I don't think anyone up here hates Muslims, individuals. As a Christian, I have an obligation to love all human beings. But there's this existential dilemma that we face, Christians, serious Christians. I'm not talking about the folks that were in Obama's church in Chicago, Reverend Wright, those people. They've abandoned Christianity a long time ago. I'm talking about true believers who believe in Jesus Christ. We have an existential dilemma because we too are commanded something. And we're commanded not to hate our enemy. We're commanded almost unthinkably to love our enemy. Love the son of a bitches that want to kill you. Go figure that one out. Over 30 years as a Christian apologist, I have figured that out. And I can reconcile that. But that's not for today. That's not for today. But I'm sure some say, wait a minute, you Christians, you also persecuted the Jews and Muslims and everybody else. Yes, Christians have. I'm talking doctrine today. What do the sacred books command people to do? What do the sacred books direct people to do? If an individual does not follow the sacred doctrine, then there's something amiss. The sacred doctrine in Christianity says, love your enemies. Now, in this geopolitical chessboard known as the world, where Islam and Christianity comprise almost 50% of the population, the irresistible force of Islam against the immovable object of Christianity, played out now before our eyes. Guess who loses that? Christians are doomed, absolutely doomed. They're commanded not to hate, when in fact that fuels the other side's doctrine of hating. And when you hate people who have to love you back, you read that, we're in their heads now, not our heads, you read that as a blessing from Allah granting your movement. Satan himself could not invent this sort of stuff. But he did. All right, listen to this. Some observations. The ongoing Middle East persecutions will increase and get worse. It's inevitable, because the other side is fueled with hate, with this digital death capability of instantaneous media assisting their dastardly deeds. The West will give up on the Middle East Christians. That's inevitable. We don't even understand the enemy, the threat doctrine of the enemy, let alone how to help individuals lost in the middle of this chaos. Islam will see this, view it as Allah's will, and be further energized to continue their first jihad, their second jihad. Now this is their third jihad. Muslim majority nations will say, hey, Time for the hijrah to go full force. Time to have a migration of believers now into, we've taken over the Middle East, send Muslims now into the West. And we've seen this for the past 10 years increase more and more. It's going to accelerate even more as we fumble around trying to figure out what the hell we're doing. As Muslim populations increase in Western countries, I've been fighting a cold all day. As Muslim populations increase in Western countries, freedom, that's no flag in this room? All right, let's make believe there's a flag over there, red, white, and blue. The red, white, and blue represents the freedoms and everything else we're so familiar with. All of those disappear. As Muslim majority influence comes into the West, Sharia compliant Muslim majority, freedoms start to decrease. Increase in Sharia, decrease in freedom. Maybe, I don't know, maybe some Christian men will figure out what I alluded to earlier, that you can love an individual, but you can participate in killing that individual too in a moral way. Again, another conversation for another time. But if Christian men, primarily, find their voice on this issue, and primarily those who wear the black robes, the men who are supposedly called to lead the congregations, if they can understand what's going on and have a dispassionate, fact-based response to the death cult of Islamic, not radicalism. I don't use the term radicalism. You're not radical if you're following your book. You're devout. If you follow your teachings consistently, you're a devout Jew, a devout Christian, a devout Mohammedan. It's the devout Mohammedans that are dangerous. If the Christian leaders can find their voice and call out Islam for a failed system and provide some sort of alternative, possibly, and this is low on my scale, having lived in this community for many years, possibly there's some hope. Recently, I was sitting down with an Orthodox Jew who we were discussing these issues. He said, "Tom, there's no hope for America. Actually, there's one hope." I said, "What is that?" This is an Orthodox Jew, well known, probably known by many of you. He said, "The only hope I see is you guys, you Christians, have to have a revival. You got to get Muslims saved so their heart changes. They change the sacred doctrine that they're following of hate to love, and they become a new person." I said, "Okay." Now, I happen to have attended Bible school and seminary that has sent many people into the Middle East. And some of them came back, some of them did not. It's very, very difficult to persuade a Muslim on facts that the belief system they're following is death and destruction, and there's something better. Atheism is better. Extremely difficult to do that. So therefore, we come back to how I started. As this animal, this soulless animal of Islamic death and destruction, fueled by weak-kneed people, increases worldwide. And if there's resistance in certain areas, if these Christian men find their voices, it's inevitable in my mind, inevitable, that they're going to accelerate their program of destroying the infidel. And the easiest way to do that right now is by looking at some of the information that Cindy talked about earlier, a targeted event. And I see whether it's a dirty nuke, it's not going to be hard to get nuclear weapons, a dirty nuke or a sophisticated suitcase nuke, they exist out there, or an EMP. They're going to escalate this because we operate out of a basis of fear, not strength, and that is what this system thrives on, lives on. And too few people are too willing to take that final step, to die for something you believe in. These people are dying for what is false. We can at least die for what's true. Once you resign yourself to the fact that what you do may bring you to the point of death, you reach a certain wonderful peace. Because I don't know anyone that is living forever. Everybody dies. Everybody in this room, you got an appointed moment, an appointed time. It's going to happen, okay? One of you is going to be first. Oh, no. Yeah, no, it's going to happen. At least prepare yourself in such a way that you know this was a life well lived. And the general this morning spoke exactly about that, talking about having a life well lived for your country. So I don't want to be a prophet of doom and gloom, but a proclaimer of reality, if you will. And folks, it's a harsh reality out there. And again, Dr. Katz and your family, thank you for bringing us together to face these issues, and we'll go forward from here better people.